Comic Book Savant, episode 401.
Welcome to Spinner Rack Bros, episode number 3, Oblivion Song.
All right, Heath. This time we keep trying to do something a little bit different every episode of Spinner Rack Bros. We did this joint comic book review. You came up with the idea of kind of like doing, maybe like movie and comic reviews. So we decided to just pick a book that we both were kind of new to both pick it up, read it, and sit down with it. So, let's see. Oblivion Song is written by Kirkman, which you should know from Walking Dead, Invincible, all of the great things that he's written over the years.
I think he's going places.
He is going somewhere.
He's on the up and up.
He's most definitely. Then it's written by, not written by, but drawn by Lorenzo Di Felici. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
If I were pronouncing it, I would say Lorenzo Di Felici.
There you go. You
but
said
I don't know.
You
Actually, it only has one C, so it might be Felici. I bet it's Felici. I bet you're right.
I'm not familiar with his artwork. This is the first time I've seen his artwork.
Yeah, me too.
Also, colorist is Annalisa Leone. Letterer is Russ Wooden, which is pretty much the Skybound, which is Kirkman's imprint off of Image. That's pretty much his letterer of choice for all his books at this point, far as I know. Walking Dead. I don't know if he lettered Invincible or not, and now he's doing this, but I know he's his preferred letterer for most of his projects at this point that he does. Do you want to go over do you have the breakdown like off the trade, like what the gist of the story is about at all?
Yeah, I'll read the back of the trade. It says, the government made every attempt to recover them, but after many years, they gave up. Nathan Cole won't. He makes daily trips, risking his life to try to rescue those lost, alone, and afraid, living in the apocalyptic hellscape of Oblivion. But maybe Nathan is looking for something else. Why can't he resist the siren call of the Oblivion Song?
Okay. So let's just jump into it. What were your your thoughts? I mean, or let me ask you this first, I guess, is like, now, are you a huge Kirkman fan? Have you read a lot of his stuff? Are you a big fan of a lot of his work? I mean, I feel like people have varying opinions of him as a comic writer. I don't know. Because you never really got into The Walking Dead. I think maybe on one of your YouTube videos, you might have mentioned that you're not like heavy into The Walking Dead, like you tried it, but it wasn't something you ever really got into.
Yeah, I tried the comic and the show, and I know that people are probably going to be mortified by that, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. It was too bleak, but I do like Kirkman's superhero stuff. I like his work for Marvel that he did when he was doing, was it Marvel Team Up? I believe that's right. Yeah. And I really loved Invincible. I did not read all of Invincible, but I read the first, 50 issues or so, and I really loved Invincible, and I need to get back on that and finish that at some point, especially now that it's done. But I like him in certain roles. Like, I like certain styles, but I don't necessarily like the grim post-apocalyptic thing. So this was I don't want to say a challenge, but this is definitely outside of my comfort zone.
Gotcha.
This is definitely Walking Dead Robert Kirkman, right? Like, you'd agree with that, right?
Somewhat, but my experience with Walking Dead is way more extensive than yours because I've read, I'm like maybe, I don't know, I'm a little behind now. So this is the most I've been behind since I first started reading the book. I might be 6 or 7 issues behind currently. But I've pretty much read every issue to the series except for the last 6 or 7 issues. It's not quite his Walking Dead writing. And he went through kind of these different funks, too, and cycles with Walking Dead, where I feel like he's not doing that so much here or yet anyway. with this book. So it's a little different. It's a little lighter than what Walking Dead was, especially like in the beginning. Like,
okay.
Yeah, 30 some episodes or 30 some issues or whatever. The Walking Dead or the first 50 really, it was super dark and like it's not that bad. It really isn't. It's interesting. It's an interesting examination. It starts making me think of events. Like we've had so many terrorist attacks and things like that, and like the PTSD of it all. Because I feel like kind of his underlined where this is kind of coming from.
Yeah.
Where Walking Dead is like, it was like his love of horror and like the psychological thriller type aspect of it where he plays on here. For that book, I feel like it's a little bit aimed towards, this event happened out of the blue and you're seeing the repercussions on the world and the people in it and the people he's pulling back. And how it's hard for them to readjust back to the regular world, So it puts me in the mind of the a PTSD person, being in war or a tragic event, and then trying to have to live their life normal after that. And we're seeing the repercussions. It's not that easy for everyone,
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. And we should also mention, without spoiling anything too much, the premise. I don't know that the back of the book really explains the premise, but like a portal opened up, I guess. There was a monster attack, and people were lost. A lot of people ended up disappearing. Monsters came over to our Earth, and people were lost. And that's kind of I guess that's the substitute for a terrorist attack or something like that, a massive traumatic event that impacted the whole world. And so we're looking less at the
event
daily,
itself.
Yeah, and more at the impact of that event on the psychological ramifications on these characters.
Yes, I agree.
Like you said, PTSD, definitely.
Yeah, and just to give you guys a frame of reference, it was a decade. So we're like, this is 10 years later because I just found a little blurb here, and it's like a decade ago, 300,000 citizens of Philadelphia were suddenly lost in the Oblivion. So just like Heath said, it was like this huge like event that happened that spawned this alien attack or monster attack or creature attack, and 300,000 people some were teleported, some were killed when the initial event happened, and that's what quote the Oblivion and Oblivion song is, kind of that event that happened that triggered all this to start. So it's really curious in that way. And, like I said, with my reference with you too, I said, I miss kind of the Kirkman doing the superhero stuff. I loved the Marvel. I literally just, this summer, I think it was when I told you I was on vacation for my anniversary, and I was in Mexico, but I was on my iPad buying comics most of the time, and they had a huge sale because they finally digitized. You could not find those trades of his Marvel team up. Mm-hmm. And they finally got them all and put them all out, the whole series, because there's only like 5 trades, and I was able to get them all like $5-6 a pop, and I got the whole series. Like, that stuff is so fun, and so he as a writer, I think he's one of my favorite writers, but I don't love everything that he writes. He definitely has some things that don't jive with me that quite. But like if you haven't read a lot of Kirkman, Walking Dead is like Heath said, and I totally agree. It's an acquired taste. It's not for everyone, and I hate horror, but I read that book. I don't watch horror. I don't read horror, but I don't think of The Walking Dead as a horror comic book. It has horror elements in it, but it's mainly a psychological thriller, and I think that's the hook to The Walking Dead. It's not the zombies; it's the people, and you get to a certain point where it pretty much slaps you in the face of what he means by the title of The Walking Dead. I think you get that in the first 50 issues. Like, they literally say it. We're The Walking Dead. Like, haha, it's a light bulb that goes off. Spoiler, it's 15 years old now, so it's not too much. I
can't believe you just ruined that.
Yeah, I ruined it. But, yeah, back to Oblivion song, though. But that's just the general premise of the book, like we said. We're just not trying to be too spoiler with this review. So let me ask you this, then, Heath. What is your thoughts about the artwork from Lorenzo?
I am of two minds. I'm inclined to be overly negative, but I'm going to try to pull back from that a little bit. I like the idea of the art. It kind of reminds me, honestly, it kind of reminds me of Ren and Stimpy, which sounds crazy, but it does. Like, it's got this very cartoony, stretched kind of a thing going on. But I would also, I do like like I said, I like it in theory, but then I have a hard time telling people apart, to be perfectly honest with you. A lot of these people, like the main character has a scar on his face. And I'd find myself looking to see if there was a scar on somebody's face to make sure that I'm looking at who I think I'm looking at. I think there are panels in this where it took me a good 10 or 15 seconds to figure out what I'm looking at. And that's probably not a compliment to art. So, yeah, I'm trying to be polite because I don't want to be overly negative. I like the idea. We don't do
negativity here, sir.
Exactly. I'm trying to, I like the idea of the art, and I think that the art is unique and it's kind of cool, but at the same time, it's unclear. The art for me is often unclear.
Got you. I'm gonna tell you this, and it was weird. I read the first issue, and I was like, I hate this artwork. I'm just gonna tell you the truth. I honestly hate the artwork. I read the second, third issue, and I'm like, I still don't know quite how I felt about the art. And this is a weird thing. I don't know in the trade, since I had the single issues and you actually had the trade of it. Does it have the letter pages after each issues, or do they have a section at the end where the letter pages are in? So
it has no letter pages. They don't even have the covers in the trade.
They don't. Wow, that's crazy. It has some really nice covers.
Yeah, it's just one. They've presented it as one episode. Which I kind of don't like that. I would rather have the chapters.
That's weird that they did it like that. So in Kirkman, I'm not a huge. I don't, because I read the comics and I got too many comics to read. So a lot of times I glance at the letter section, but I do it from time to time. Like if I see a big memorandum type thing, it'll catch my eye. So it was this. It was a memorandum long thing, and it was a story from Lorenzo. And it literally almost brought me to tears. It was just saying how he's a European artist. He's been a European artist his whole life. And, he loved art. His mom loved art. She used to paint. And he was telling this whole story about how, her, she did 3 paintings up for him, of Popeye, Spider-Man, and some other character. I can't remember which character it was, but iconic characters that he loved as a child. She painted these beautiful pictures. And she, hung them over his bed. And he said, just seeing the art just captured his imagination. He would dream about these characters, and he felt like the paints would drip down into his dream. It was this beautiful, articulate, the story he was painting in this post in the letters page, right before the letter page starts at the end of one of the issues. And, he was saying, because of the different influences, he read American comics and, all of that kind of influenced his art style. And then as he started trying to break into comics over in Europe, how they always treated him like an outsider because he loved American comics and he read them and he was kind of partly influenced by them. They would kind of negatively talk about his art and be like, as American influence, as an insult to his art. So he always had this hang up, and it was always this kind of thing it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and him hanging in there. But it always bothered him because he's I'm not an outsider, I'm inside, I'm a European. But but he always had this. It was a negative connotation stuck to his artwork. And then I thought it made me think a little bit deeper to be not so quick to judge, because I thought about Charlie Adler when he came on The Walking Dead. And I wasn't a huge fan of his artwork. I can't remember who the guy was who did the first 5 issues. I can't remember, but I love his art style. I can't remember what his name is right now. I always have this issue when I bring this whole thing up. But he did the covers, and he comes back and he does covers for the Walking Dead. He's credited on the TV show too as a co-creator. I can't remember that guy's name. Y'all, hold on, let me go to. I hate doing this in an episode, but it's it bugs me because I never can remember the guy's name whatsoever.
You Google and I'll talk while you're doing it.
Yeah, you go ahead and talk while I Google.
So that makes me feel really bad because I've obviously no one ever sets out to be like, well, I'm gonna just half do this art. I don't think he half did it. That's the thing. We have to remember, like you talk about this sometimes in your podcast and in your YouTube videos and stuff. No one ever sets out to make bad art. Like they don't want to make. No one's like, well, I'm just gonna write a so-so comic book, or I'm gonna make a movie that's it's okay. Everybody thinks that the thing they're doing is the best thing they're doing most of the time. So I don't mean to be overly critical of him because that's actually a really sweet story, and I definitely believe that there is. I mean, I've witnessed that there's a European bias against American culture and against American art and stuff like that, and so he would exist outside of Two Worlds because he would be neither European. They wouldn't identify with him, and then Americans. Obviously, we're sitting here talking about how we did not like the art. So that's tough. That's really tough, and I do feel bad about it. And so I'm trying to be.
But sometimes you just don't like stuff. So, I mean, I 100% I understand that. And like I said, I didn't either, and it just reminded me of when I first experienced Charlie Adler's work, and it was just like I said, it just didn't work for me. Over time, it grew on me.
Yeah.
And I learned to what's the word? I learned to appreciate it, and then he became one of my favorite artists. Like it just. Tony Moore, that's who it is. Tony Moore did the first first 5 or 6 issues of Walking Dead, and I loved his artwork. So when it went to Charlie Adler, I was like, "What? This is not what I signed up for." No, and but again, after time passed, I really learned to appreciate Charlie Adler, and he was consistent, and I learned his art over time, and like he's one of, I would have to say, like 100%, he's become like one of my top 20 like artists because he does great scenes. He does a great job at storytelling. But initially, I hated his artwork, similar as this guy. So
that's how it goes sometimes too, right? Like that's
John Romita Jr.
I was about to say John Romita Jr.
I've talked about that a lot. When he first started out, I hated his artwork. But I'm talking about when John Romita Jr. first started in the 80s when he was doing Uncanny X-Men and I think like New Mutants. Oh my God, I hated his. Oh God, gag me with a spoon. I hated it. I really went 80s with the gag me with the spoon. Y'all, half the people do not know what I just said. Gag him with a spoon? What is that? What is that?
Where's the beef? Where's the beef?
Yes, where's the beef? And I didn't. So it's funny. It's totally funny that and he became one of my favorite artists. He's probably one of my top 10 favorite artists.
Yeah.
He goes through spells. He goes through spells. Like he can be really good, and then when he's not on point, or you can tell he's a little full and pushing himself. His artwork can vary from project to project. With him, so and I literally like reading it. I almost cried, and it made me think. And I think about us as creators and putting stuff out and releasing stuff, like how we feel about. They're like our little babies, and how certain times we get negative comments or people come at us kind of sideways, and how it affects us. So it made me think about that. So it made me pull back and just be a little bit more patient with it. And so whenever that letter, I think it was maybe after the second issue, or definitely the third at the most. I read that and I was a little bit more patient with the artwork, and was a little bit, like you said, it took me a little bit longer in certain scenes, and I agree. It's 2 characters in particular, female characters, that I can't tell apart. I really got to pull back to tell which one is which, because they look exactly the same to me. It's just who they're paired up with in the scene and sometimes it takes me a while to determine that. I will totally agree with you with that. So it can be challenging, but
that might also actually be what he's going for. I can't tell, like, if he's trying to go for this weird fluid collage of, like, because it's usually the scenes that I have the most trouble with are usually monster scenes,
right? Yeah.
And that might be what he like. What am I looking at? That may be what he wants.
And he talks about that too. I didn't read because it goes really in depth. I mean, because they really do. They go behind the scenes. Either him or Robert or some of the creative team will have different things that they talk about at the end of each issue. He talked about, I don't know if I don't know how long this series is going to be, but he's already been working on this series like a couple of years already. Oh, wow. Like they're into it deep. Like we're getting the issues, but I guess Kirkman had carved out time, and he handpicked this guy. He was like, Robert approached me I think 3 years ago or something like that. And, he's like, it's a dream working for him. And he's like, I've worked on this book in secret for a couple of years now. And, he was saying how he made stuff up to not let it be known what it was for when it finally did come out. So, so I don't know what the road plan is for Oblivion Song, or how many, and that's maybe why they're doing it in episodes. Cause I even thought from the single issues when I saw the trade, it was it was named a little differently, like Oblivion Song, just chapter 1 or something like that, or episode 1, like you were saying. And so it was shocking to me, when you were saying they presented it in that way, it's one complete episode, not 6 individual issues or whatnot.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, what else would you say about the book? Because we did linger on the art quite a while, but it is because it might not, the art style might not hit for everyone the same.
It's unconventional.
It is. It is, and like I said, he talked about that at parts and trying to design all the monsters from just because Robert is unique, and I've heard this from different people, artists and stuff he worked with, is that give me whatever you got, but he examined this kid, he handpicked him, so he was familiar with his art and felt like he was a great fit, and kind of let him have his way in the designs. And he talked, I think at the end of the first issue, he talked about designing the lead character Nathan and the look and what he originally thought off notes, and how it was a very collaborative process with Robert, refining the look and doing different things. And the monsters, he talks about that. I think that's the end of the first issue. They, in the, back of the comic, they talk about some of that stuff. So, again, it could make more sense if I read it too deeply. But again, it's that back matter like that. Sometimes I have to be in a particular mood because I'm more invested in the characters and the story. But sometimes I like to go back later and be like, oh, that's kind of cool. But that's a few. I glanced over them and read parts, but not all of it because it was a couple pages long. And I was like, okay, I'm trying to get the rest of the story because I started getting sucked into the story a little bit. So I wanted to see what was happening next and next and next throughout. So I guess, because we're not going to get too spoilery into it, what would be your bottom line? Would this be a book that you would read in the future, or it just wasn't your cup of tea? I'm curious to know. Well,
so I'm still wrestling with it, to be perfectly honest with you, because this is not really my cup of tea. It's the approach that's the thing for me, because I am a horror fan, and I like a certain kind of horror, and a story about monsters that invaded Earth and people were lost to the monster dimension. That on paper sounds super interesting to me. But that's not the focus of the book. The focus of the book is guilt and shame and survivors, whatever, and the like you said, the PTSD of the whole thing. And that is much less interesting to me. And to some people that would be way more interesting to me. But I tend to want escapism from my comic books. I've lived a very dramatic life. I've had a lot of stuff that's happened. And when I read a comic book, I just want to go see things that allow me to turn off reality of human pain and things like that. I don't necessarily want to have to see someone struggling with inner turmoil to the degree that this book really seems to be focused on. So because of that, I don't know. I'm inclined to say that I'm not really interested in carrying forward with it, but at the same time, I'm curious enough about it that I might pick up future volumes. I'm really not sure. I wasn't expecting to be so emotionally drained by this comic book, and I was. It drained me emotionally. It was a tough read.
Gotcha.
But I also have to say that I do feel like this is, especially the way they've collected the trade and the way that there are no chapter stops in this, there's no issue stops. I feel like this chapter 1 is basically a 1-hour TV show. And I would not be surprised if this I don't mean to be cynical about this. I wouldn't be surprised if this is being done the way that it's done to pitch a future TV series or a Netflix series or something like that, because the premise very much does lend itself to something like that.
I can see that.
Not like Stranger Things. You could say, Stranger Things, you've got the Upside Down, and you've got 11 and you've got superpowers, but the focus of Stranger Things is not really, that's not the focus. The focus is the characters and how they're interacting and engaging with this threat and their relationships with each other. And that's what this book is. It's set against the backdrop of this great cataclysm with monsters and everything, but the focus is on the people. So I think it very much lends itself to a TV series. And I know that that does seem to be what happens with a lot of these books, especially over at Image, is they seem like pilot seasons for maybe potential future adaptations somewhere else. So I don't know. I mean, I'm very torn. I would like to see it loosen up a little bit, but I don't really think that's the intention of the book. No, and it's funny to me that you're like, well, it's so, this is lighter than The Walking Dead. I'm like, holy crap, this is like going to a funeral. So, I don't know. I would say it's very heavy. But yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
I guess I'm kind of used to it from reading Walking Dead for so long. In comparison, though Walking Dead at points could lighten up, it could linger in a dark place for a while. I guess, I don't know. I guess over the time of just doing podcasts and like finding different books and just reading a ton of different books, is just something different. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I try it all. I'm kind of two minds as well. I don't know if I'm interested in it. I've been struggling, like, do I pick up issue 7? And because it's discounted now, so like, and that's one, like, Image is what, $2.99 I think per issue, and I think after the first month it drops down to like $179. So a lot of times or $199, and then I get the Comixology Unlimited little 20-cent discount. So it's like $179. So like when I see a book, because there's not too many current books I'll pick it up based on, I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it. And, but I feel like I kind of agree with you. Like, I'm still interested. It's not a book like that I feel like, I got to read this issue. I'm curious. And because I've been picking it up in single issues, it's like, could I wait for the next volume to come out and just get it then? Probably either way, cost effectiveness wise. Because I think the retail was because how much did you end up paying for the trade?
It was $9.99, and then there was a slight Amazon discount.
Oh, okay. And then I bought all the issues. I bought them at discount, so it probably came out to be the same because I paid like $179 for issue per 6, or I might have paid a little bit more going that route. So I might need to wait for the trades to come out. But the back matter stuff is pretty good, though. The stuff that I did read, it really did change my perspective of the artwork to look at it from more caring eye and not so overly critical eye, because we can do that at times, because certain things just don't strike us. Sometimes we're like, I hate the artwork. Comic book fan hates the artwork. We hear it a lot.
Yeah, we do.
I think, like, for me, like, rating it wise, like, it's not a must buy, but it's a good enough read, like you said, that under the right circumstances I probably would go back and revisit it. Not 100% sure when that will be, because it's so much, we talk about it all the time, there's so much stuff out there. But if it lingers around, which I'm assuming it will, but till you mentioned it is, because it has the Walking Dead kind of framework. It's just kind of a different scenario, but the frameworking of it, like you said, so if he sold Walking Dead as a very successful TV show, this has that same frameworking around it that, like you said, it could be perfect on AMC or Netflix or wherever as a show. And once you said that, especially in the presentation of the trade, we're probably going to see it, because we know what it's going to be. We know it's going to be an Invincible TV show plus an Invincible movie in the works.
It feels like it's being tailor made, right, for a series.
Once you said that, I could totally agree with that. So I'm pretty much on the same side as you when it comes to that. It's for some, it's probably going to be a heavy read for sure. I read it pretty quick after I got, sometimes for me, reading comics is just, the thinking about it is the most strenuous part once I get into it. I read him so much. He has a certain cadence to his writing. I bust through the issues. Like, I sat down and read like 4 issues in probably less than an hour or something like that. It didn't take long.
It's a quick read.
Yeah, it's super quick. And Kirkman doesn't get too wordy. he lets the artist kind of tell the story too, so it wasn't word bubbles. That's not like the 80s, where it's word balloons on word balloons on word balloons. You can barely see the art. It's the complete kind of opposite. He lets the art kind of tell the story, and it's text where it needs to be, but it's not so much, Mm-hmm. But that's where I'm at. I mean, I think I could recommend it, but I can clearly say it's not for everyone because I think Heath gave really good perspective on if you're not used to reading like a Kirkman, like later Invincible or parts of Invincible, because Invincible gets really dark, even though it's light and it has superhero parts to it. It shrugs a lot of the light, dark, funny, brutal, violent.
Invincible has balance to it.
I agree.
It has nuance.
I agree. This doesn't have that same balance, and I feel
this
like
has zero humor whatsoever. I mean, there's not even like
not even a little bit. Not even.
No one ever is like under their breath muttering something that would allow us to sigh, to just let it go a little bit. It doesn't want us to do that. It wants to keep us in this world, and that will appeal to some people.
Yeah, and so I definitely agree. It's no balance like that. So it's not going to be for everyone. But if you've read Walking Dead, and I say if you're a fan of The Walking Dead and Kirkman's style in that book, you would be interested in this book. I feel, but I definitely agree with Heath. It's not going to be for everyone because it could be a heavy book if you're not used to the way Kirkman writes this kind of situational kind of book. But yeah, that's kind of why I don't really have anything else to say at that point about Oblivion Song. Was chapter 1 or volume 1 trade paperback. Like I said, it's good for the right person. It's the best way I can say it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would say. I don't think it's bad. I think it's well written. I think it's an interesting premise. It's just not the focus of the story is not the story that I'm necessarily interested in reading. I'd be more interested in seeing Surviving in Oblivion or something like that.
Right,
like
the flip side. It's in the regular world and going back and forth. But yeah, that I think that would be interesting. Then that's something they could do like a spinoff series or something with maybe.
Or maybe it's coming. Maybe he's got plans for.
True, because we like I said, when I'm reading the back matter, he said this. He's been working on this book for years, and so and they're putting out issues every month in, month out consistently, and it seems like they're ahead of the game with this. And Kirkman is such a prolific writer and, doing so many different things, running Skybound. And I think Skybound is probably the most productive branch of Image at this point, as far as the level of projects they put out, that umbrella of Image. So, yeah.
And Kirkman loves to swerve his readers, too. So
yeah, that's true, too.
We will see. Yeah. I will probably pick up Volume 2.
Yeah, I might wait for the individual issues to come out and then just get the Volume 2 trade. It irks me about the whole digital. I'm doing it. We're gonna talk about that at some point, because like at some point now, like I'm frustrated because now that I read the individual issues, because sometimes comic book fans were impulsive. I wish like I could literally just trade in my 6 issues digitally and just be like, here, exchange it for the trade. No, I got to buy the trade if I want the trade, and then I still have the single issues.
Yeah, but with the single issues, you got all that back matter. The trade has zero.
That's true.
Nothing.
It really peppered my opinion of the comments that I spoke on the book. So I think it did make a difference. Maybe I will pick up the single issues now that I said that, because it did make a big difference hearing the creative process behind it. It made me appreciate it more.
See, I would rather have read the single issues than this trade. So,
yeah, when we kind of brainstormed it, I didn't know because most trades will have even a semblance of that in the trade, and so I was, even if it didn't have the letters page, because like I said, it was like the page before the letters page. They would have this stuff, and like he had like, I think at the end of the first issue, he had sketches of the monsters and of Nathan and the different iterations of the cape and him and his face and all that. So it was like a little section before the letters page. So I would have at least have thought that would have been in there. So I'm really shocked they didn't.
Yeah, they've taken all that out, and the pages aren't even numbered, so you have no idea. This is it's meant to be read in one sitting.
Gotcha.
Which I don't think is great. I I think that there's something to be said for the individual serialized format of comic books.
I agree on that.
You can't even tell. Like sometimes you can tell in a comic book, like, oh, that was probably we're on a splash page, so that's probably the last page of that issue. But you can't even really tell in here because sometimes they end on splash, or sometimes there are splash pages, but there's not a lot.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, they might need to work on that then for that series, but Kirkman does do this. He does have a pattern, like he puts out trades quickly, then he'll he does the hardcovers, like the oversized hardcover editions, and I think because since I haven't had them in a while, I don't know if the Walking Dead ones did, but I think the Invincible ones. What would they call that? Library editions. They might have had some back matter and back content in them. I think all the covers were in the back of it as well. That it was the ones that they would collect like 12 issues. So he would do the trades every 6 months. Then he would do the hardcover every year, and that's kind of his pattern for like all his books. Because Invincible,
and then they do like big omnibus editions,
right?
As well.
The big omnibus editions and the compendium editions as well. Yeah,
compendiums.
Yeah. So he has a kind of pattern he's done since he's been at Skybound on how he puts the content out. And I stopped buying a lot of the trades, and when I was collecting comics physically, I always bought the yearly ones. I would buy them by the year because I caught on The Walking Dead late. So it was like I bought like the first 4. I think I read the first trade, and I bought the first 4 yearly hardcovers, and then that's when I got caught up. I like burned through those, and then I start buying the rest as they came out until I tapered off of physical comics some years ago. But yeah.
If they put out a hardcover edition of this like after the second trade, I would absolutely pick that up because this very much does feel deliberate. I think it's exactly what they want it to be. This feels like a quick, like it's about an hour read. I think it's meant to feel like an hour TV show, like Walking Dead or whatever. One chapter. You sit down, you read it. You don't stop in the middle. You read the whole thing. I think that's what they wanted it to feel like. So, but I'm interested in, like you said, like the letters pages and everything. So if they do it a hardcover, I'll probably pick that up
for sure. And we probably have to revisit it at that time and just see what our opinions are a year in, if they're still the same, or are we like all in, or we're totally like, we're done, we're good. It'll be interesting to see where,
because there's definitely potential there.
I do agree with that, and I feel like that with a lot of his books. Like they start off with good potential. It's just how he stays on focus throughout. So it'll be good to see. Is it any? Oh, I do want to. Do you watch any of the Marvel Netflix shows?
I'm way behind. I've seen the first season of Daredevil. I watched half the season of Jessica Jones, and that's all I've seen.
Okay. I just was upset because I heard that Iron Fist got canceled this past weekend, and I was like upset because the first season was horrible, and I watched it all, and my eyes felt like they were bleeding at certain points. But the second season was just so good; they corrected so much. It was like the biggest turnaround I've ever seen in a TV show. It still wasn't a perfect show; it still had its moments, but it was so well improved from season 1 to season 2. And they canceled it, and I was like shocked that they did. And I feel like it was such a bad taint on the show from that first season because it was so bad that they couldn't overcome it. I just think people weren't even willing to give it a try based off of how it being burnt from the first season. And they made this cryptic. They had a joint statement, and they made this cryptic comment of, though the Iron Fist show's been canceled, the stories of the Immortal Iron Fist will continue. So it's super cryptic, like, okay, this is going over to Disney streaming, that's why they canceled it. Are they going to do Daughters of the Dragon? Because that was set up pretty heavily in the second season. A lot of stuff was set up, and it was a bunch of huge cliffhangers at the end, and I'm like, I just can't see them walking away from that. You invested too much in this season to be like, cancel it now. So something's up, or they're going to do Heroes for Hire. I feel like,
oh man, that would be awesome. Now, having seen none of those, I would totally be on.
And
I would
some of
watch
the best
Heroes
episodes with Finn Jones as Iron Fist is with him with Michael Coulter as Luke Cage. They have great chemistry, so it will be a slam dunk. But I mean, they haven't the two. And I think this is where they're going because they announced immediately after most of the other seasons, hey, it's a season 3. Hey, it's a season. I think they've already announced it's already going to be a season 4 of Daredevil. I think even we already know that it's a season 2 of Punisher is coming. It's already been shot. It's coming. I don't know if it's coming by the end of the year or the beginning of next year right now, but it's coming. So these shows stay in production. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Luke Cage came out. They haven't said anything definitive about season 3 yet. Now this comes out, they cancel it, and then they make the cryptic comment, and I'm like, are they not saying anything? And Luke Cage was because the first half of season 1 of Luke Cage is really, really good. The second half is not as good, and then the second season it was a big swerve because it went totally where the character ends from where he started was not where I expected it to go. But it was really strong. It was a really strong season. And I was surprised that they haven't announced anything. And now since they canceled this, it just registers in my head that we're either going to they're just going to cancel the 2 shows and it's going to be rebranded as Heroes for Hire, or you're going to do Heroes for Hire and then do Sisters of the, Daughters of the Dragon. And just do those 2 shows in place of, because just Finn Jones as Danny Rand is okay. He improved a lot, but I kind of feel like he's not a character that can, or actor or a character that can carry his own show. Mm-hmm. He's the weakest of the Marvel Netflix characters in his portrayal and just the setup and everything of him carrying his own show. For me, even season 1, Colleen Wing was the standout in the season. That made me stay engaged in the season. And I did care about him more in this second season, but she was just a good standout. I'm more sad about the show being canceled for losing her than him, to be honest with you, which is kind of messed up. But but where they left them, the cliffhanger they had for it was awesome. And I was like, I want to see where this is going. So it seems like we might get it. Marvel got something up their sleeves about this whole thing, so I guess we'll learn at some point. But I was just curious. I know we were talking about it before, and I meant to ask you specifically about this because it just hurt my heart because it was like, man, I watched it, and it was like they really improved, but dang, they're not going to follow up, and it seems like they got something in the works.
I'm sure they got something in the works because I'm pretty sure that Netflix has the rights to those Marvel shows that have already been produced for years into the future. And Disney has that streaming service dropping in 2019. So they want their own content on that. And if they can repurpose some, I don't think they do an Iron Fist season 3 if I had to guess, because it's going to reference you over to Netflix, which at that point would be their competition.
Right.
So I could totally see them taking that character, maybe the same actor, maybe the same, maybe like Heroes for Hire, like you said, or something, but putting it on their own service because they know that there's an audience there. And if season 2 is as big of an improvement as you say it was, and I've heard other people say that too, that season 2 was much better. So they're not going to. I don't think they just can it. They probably have plans for it so they can further make money. I mean, they've already developed it, right? Like they've got this far into that whole Marvel, what do they call it? The TV universe or whatever.
Well, that's the weird thing is that it's still the MCU. They reference the event, the attack on New York. They reference the heck out of Justin Hammer and his weapons from Iron Man 2. Like he's been referenced so much. Luke Cage, the whole season, like. The MacGuffin in the season was a bullet created by him that could kill him. You know what I mean? Like it was Justin Hammer's weapons that they were using. And that's been circulated through the different shows that a lot of the weapons that were being sold on the black market were weapons that he created. So it's definitely ties there, but you'll never see a movie character in the shows though, but they reference them, though the movies never referenced them back in return. So it's kind of investment of a diminishing returns, I guess. But yeah, they're brought. So it's technically all supposed to be united because the shows always will. Even in in Iron Fist Typhoid Mary. She was in it. She was in Sokovia. Like they made it threw me when they referenced it because I was not expecting to hear her because they always say like the event and they always kind of that's their one like throwback line. But when they were like, oh no, she was in she was Black Ops and she was sent to Sokovia and she was a prisoner of war in Sokovia and I'm like what really like I was like wow that's kind of cool because I wasn't expecting it. But that was a little twist they did as far as referencing to the MCU. So they're still doing it as of the more recent shows. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
but that was all I wanted to talk about. Because I know we normally be having these super long episodes. We're trying to do better about not having over hour long episodes. But that was just on my mind. I just wanted to get your opinion on that real quick. But I am your host, James, and this is your co-host, Mr. Heath Holland, and we are the Sprinter Rack Bros. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please, definitely, we are dying to get some feedback, from you guys to just tell us what you like, what you don't like, any topics, movies, comics, anything like that that's comic book related that you might want us to cover in a future episode. We're always, looking to mine new ideas and, try to, see what topics you want us to hear us talk about. So
we want to hear from you. Yes, you. We want to know what you think about the show and what you want to hear us talk about.
And he's on Twitter, Serial. Is it what's your Twitter? Because it's not exactly Serial at Midnight. What is it? Serial Midnight, right?
Yeah, it's at Serial Midnight. That's the story of my life. It's like every social media thing has someone else has already gotten Serial at Midnight and then is not using it, and so it's like Twitter. I think the Twitter Serial at Midnight has tweeted just like a few times or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm at Serial Midnight on Twitter, serialatmidnight.com, Serial Midnight on Instagram. YouTube.com/serial at midnight.
And you can always find me on Twitter and Instagram is at Comic Book Savant. YouTube is youtube.com/Comic Book Savant. And website is comicbooksavant.com. So you can, those episodes post there. So you can comment to us directly through Twitter or Instagram or again, you can go to the website and it's you can comment on underneath the episode. Just click on comment and you can leave feedback there as well, or just hit us up directly on social media and let us know, like I said, what you like, what you dislike, and what would you like to hear from us going forward. We really would appreciate it. So if you could do that, we'll be forever grateful. And I guess this is James and that's Heath. Say bye, Heath.
Bye, Heath.
And we'll see you next time for another episode of Sprinter Rack Bros. You have a good week, guys.